Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Solutions to Wellness podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Iron Alliance. Iron Alliance is a company that Zach and I started off our experiences from the Marines and football. And from those experiences, we took a lot of good takeaways as far as leadership, team camaraderie, and just overall communication skills. So we apply those to any organization, whether it might be a corporation, a sports team, youth group, or just in general with our own lives and relationships. So we've learned a lot. We're very fortunate where we are with that business and are continuing to grow. Solutions to Wellness is an expo we're going to be holding in the Fox Valley, and the expo is exclusively for health and wellness, whether that may be finances, that might be local fitness areas, healthy food options, mental well-being, anything you could think of that is going to get our community on the correct path to their total wellness is going to be at that expo. We're excited to bring that to the Fox Valley. It's a very upcoming thing in the area, wellness that is, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. So with that, continuing with the podcast today, we have an extremely influential guest and an amazing opportunity here to sit down and speak with him, and I'm going to have Zach introduce who he is, and we'll get to it.
Fired up today, coming off of a great weekend. We're here with CEO of the Oshkosh Boys and Girls Club, Mark Dosogne. Mark has had a Boys and Girls Club career of 35 years, from Chicago to Omaha, Nebraska, to Seattle, Washington, to right here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. He got his master's, his undergraduate and master's in public communication at DePaul University in Chicago. And he's been CEO of the club here for 15 years here in Oshkosh. Mark Dosogne, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Zach and Chad. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, so let's dive right in. So I'd love to give our viewers just a little bit more detail on how you, why did you become CEO of the Boys and Girls Club? What drove you to pursue that career?
Sure. I've worked in Boys and Girls Clubs since college. I started out as a swim team coach and a lifeguard, and thinking it was just going to be a college job, and found out the opportunities that you could do career-wise as I got a little further into it, and let it become my passion. And as a result of that, as I moved further on in my career with all kinds of program jobs, running camps and program director and director at some clubs, I saw the opportunity that the CEOs were making to really impact communities, kids' lives, families' lives, staff lives, donors, and so forth. And I realized that I could do that more if I increased my ability to reach out to people and so forth. And so being a CEO, and I've had a chance to do that twice now, once in Bellevue, Washington, and then once here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, really gives you that opportunity to do what you love, but also in a way of helping other people do the same. So this is in this job, you get to create opportunities for donors, for example, to live their dreams by their connection to the Boys and Girls Club and what they'd like to see for young people and families. As staff, you give a chance for young staff to learn how that this could be a career for them, just as somebody did for me, and so providing those opportunities has been great. And then helping an organization grow in the community and giving community partnerships to advance what we can do for kids. So for all those reasons, I think I enjoyed the opportunity to do it, the chance to lead, the chance to make a difference in other people's lives. It's just been really meaningful to me.
An amazing aspect to have of you're kind of that connecting file between the community, the donors, the youth, all that thing, the parents. You bring it all kind of together and put it into one. And, I'm sure we're learning, and Zach and I are learning in our experience here that with the kids and the youth, our own leadership and learning from them, has there been a lot of things that you've taken away from the youth themselves that's really made you reflect on your leadership style, even just your habits and relationship and everything?
Absolutely. You when you do these kinds of jobs over a while, you meet all kinds of kids, families, people from the community. I think you evolve in your thinking as you go along. You learn things that you thought worked well and things that don't work well with working with kids. holding them accountable, learning how to hold them accountable for certain things, and then in other cases helping them get past some of the obstacles that they have in their lives. So I think a combination of those things I've learned and changed over time. As far as learning from kids, I think that's stayed consistent. Kids are kids. They have dreams. They make mistakes. They can be impetuous, like we all can. Especially kids who have to overcome obstacles and things that they just didn't ask for in their lifestyle, in their lives growing up. So I think what I've learned is with the kids is that some of them, they're going to make it no matter what. They are going to beat every obstacle, and they've just got a fortitude in them. They just need the opportunity. And I think it's one of the things that we realize, if we can open those doors to provide the opportunity, they're going to go for it. And that's great. We have other kids that they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle for whatever different reasons, the circumstances, their personality, the result of the chaos maybe they were in. They're going to struggle, and they're probably going to struggle the rest of their lives. That's just how that's going to be. So I've learned some of that. I think the other thing that I've really learned more to focus on with kids and with staff is give them expectations. You got to give them expectations. I think we've made a mistake in our country with giving too much to kids and giving too much to people without the work ethic that we want to try to instill in them to create good work habits and discipline and values and those kind of things that I think are important for our young people to succeed. So I think that it's not just opening the door and giving them things, it's opening the door and giving them opportunity to succeed. And part of that comes from, an example would be, teaching them how to care about their community, teaching them how to, teaching them good things about teamwork, teaching them about politeness, about respect, those kinds of things that I think were just used to be part of everybody's culture in our country, and we got away from so much of that in so many situations. And so I think a place like a Boys and Girls Club can help fill that gap for kids, and I think that's an important part of what we try to do here at the Boys and Girls Club.
So you've been in this for 35 years, and you speak on almost as if society is changing. You mentioned we're giving too much to kids. Has that changed over 35 years, or is that something that has been around for a while?
Yeah, I think it's changed. I don't know all the reasons. You can speculate, but I think as a country, in many cases, we have parents that want to do everything for their kids. We have parents that want to excuse everything for their kids. We have parents and maybe sometimes educators and other people who they want everybody to be a winner. They want everybody to get a trophy. They want everybody to absolutely feel like that they won the game. I'm just not so sure that's the best way. That's the healthiest way. And the reason why is because I just think in my own life and other people's lives, I think we're proudest of those things that we tended to work hard for. And we're proud of the things where we overcame obstacles or learned how to handle defeat and learned how to handle that you're not going to get everything. You're just not going to. And so, but I think for some parts of our population in the country, there's some of that thought process that no, every kid has to be exactly equal, get the exact same experience, win the exact same awards, or they want to do away with awards. Or I just don't agree with that. I think that you provide opportunity. You want to make sure kids have opportunity because not everybody gets the same opportunities. And I think that's where we have to work hard to make sure that kids get those opportunities. But I think there has to be expectation and accountability and goals to strive for. Now, some kids are from backgrounds and situations where people open the doors for them that other kids don't even know exist. So is that more unfair? Yeah, I think so. So then that's why I think places like Boys and Girls Clubs exist, to open those doors. An example would be teaching kids how to prepare for a job interview. So if you come from a home where you've had a mom and dad who understand how to prepare you well, and you've had mentors and those kind of things in your neighborhood and your family, you're going to do okay. If you come from a situation where nobody at home knows how to do that, you're at a disadvantage. So that's where I think the club, the Boys and Girls Club, is a great place to have people come in and teach kids those kinds of things, because they don't know what they don't know. And so I think that's where we can help.
Mark, I'd just like to commend you on things that you've mentioned and how we've seen it since our time here, of how the structure really is exactly how you say it, the expectations, and really this club is a benefit for the community, but it's also a benefit, and it's just the necessity that some of the youth needs that many corporations and many other groups and things that they don't see kind of similar of. There needs to be something to be proud of. There needs to be something to strive for. There needs to be that, that reason to work hard and have that ethic. And it's amazing to see that here and see that in the youth. And it's just awesome to, just see that that's really being applied constantly here.
I think that speaks to our board, our staff, our mission, our values. You walk around our club, and if you walk around with me, you're going to see me watching to see that kids take their hats off in the building, that kids will speak to the staff and, might call somebody Miss or Mr. With their first name, and I think that's a respect thing. We ask kids to take off their backpacks. We ask them not to wear sunglasses in the club. We ask kids not to have baggy pants hanging down or showing midriff or cleavage or things like that. Why? Because when they get out in the world, as you know this, you're not going to interview well with those kinds of things. You're probably not going to do well in most job settings. You just don't know that as a kid from certain backgrounds, and you're not going to know that, and then you're going to wonder, why didn't I get an interview? Why didn't I get a job? Why didn't I get an opportunity to be invited to be in some group or club or whatever? And so we ask that here of the kids. We want them to help clean up, help pick up. We monitor the way that they leave their table when they finish a lunch, because you guys go throw that garbage away, or those kinds of things. We just sent 6 kids with one of our staff members down to Orlando last week for something called the National Keystone Conference. It's a Boys and Girls Club program that's been around for 50 years, and it's a teen leadership program. 2,000 kids from across the country met in Orlando who are Keystone Club members. And so the kids that went, they had to belong to Keystone Club this year. They had to attend meetings. They had to do some fundraising. They had to do some community service. We wanted to look at the grades. We wanted to hear what the teachers had to say about how they're doing. We wanted to look at their behaviors at the club. There might have been 12 Keystone Club members. 6 got to go because we're investing. We're going to invest in the flight and the hotel and the staff time and so forth, right? So that's a privilege. It's not a right. It's a privilege. And I tell kids all the time that you've earned that privilege to go because you're going to get an incredible opportunity, and you're going to come back here and have a chance to be a better leader as well as a staff member. But not everybody gets to go. So that would be, an example. Another example is right now I'm working with a young lady who's she's weeks away from getting her master's degree down in Kenosha. She's a club kid, grew up here, and she came from just really tough circumstances in her life. I'm not going to go into all of them, but just suffice it to say that a real major obstacles and had every reason to not turn out okay. Every step for her in her life's been a battle. And then working with us and being here for a number of years, she's been a battle. And I still visit with her and mentor her and talk with her. But, she's called me back sometimes and said, Mark, I just want to say thank you to the Boys and Girls Club for what you all made me do or things that you instilled in me that now when I'm out in public or I'm interviewing or I'm in, hanging around other people who are educated with master's degrees, let's say, I know how to act I know it's expected. I know what I have to do to complete these classes. So I hear that from kids that come back and say those things to us. And I appreciate that because I think, it's the right thing.
I think it speaks volumes, those little things that you speak of, like taking the hat off inside or, just dressing a little bit more appropriate in public. There's 25, 35, 45-year-old people that still don't get that point where they don't realize that in the first 7 seconds of meeting somebody, that person has already got their first impression of you. And in the first 2 minutes, they've already created their opinion of you, So I think that's huge that these little, I would argue, some would say they're little things. I would argue they're huge things of just a professional appearance, just meeting somebody and building a trust. And, we often say, I don't, dress up nice and put on a button up or whatever because I want to look good. I do it out of respect for you. Mm-hmm. That I value your time, that I'm trying to look decent for you and be respectful for you. So I think, that speaks volumes. We had a pretty influential individual in one of our platoons when I was in the Marines, and he always made it a point to look professional. And he said, if you're looking professional, you're acting professional, people are willing to work with you more. Mm-hmm. If you go to a higher up an officer and you look like a slob and not well put together, they're not going to trust you with a mission. Right. You're not going to be able to get your team together and go on a mission because they're just going to be like, well, you could be solid, but they're not going to just by your appearance. And that's just the way kind of the world works, and set yourself up for success. So,
Chad, that is so true. And I've sat and talked with many a business owner out there. Now, this is America. You can do just about anything you want in America, and there's a lot of freedoms, and you can choose a lot of choices you want to make, and that's okay. But I've talked with the people out there who are hiring, and this isn't universal, and it's not everybody. But I can tell you, I've talked to a lot of business owners who said to me, they just won't even consider somebody who does not come in respectfully. They just won't. They don't tell them. They don't tell them why they didn't get the interview. They don't tell them why they didn't get the job. They'll just tell me afterward. Well, we're not. So I think that's the mistake that some young people don't understand is they assume that, it's America, it's free, and it is. You can dress how you want, and you can say what you want in most situations, and that's okay. What they just don't get is that it's going to be a more limited opportunity for them out there. That's the part they don't get. But I'm talking to the business owners, and I'm talking to who they hire and what they're looking for, and that's what they're looking for. They need because it's their place, it's their investment, it's their representation, their image, and that's what they want. Probably the same, maybe for the military. I don't know. I wasn't in the military, so I'm not sure. But or in a lot of fields. So, yeah.
And it's something you can control. I mean, I can control the clothes I put on every single day, how I compose myself. Yeah. When I meet someone, mm-hmm. It doesn't matter my status. These are things that are in my control that I can put myself ahead of someone else as far as, what someone thinks of me. So transitioning the conversation, really to the mental health of the kids at the club. It's a big topic in 2019. Found a stat from 2016 that said 10% of children and young people aged 5 to 16 years old have a clinically diagnosable mental problem. What have you seen over 35 years? Do you find that number increasing, and what do you attest this number to?
So Zach, I would agree with that. In fact, I'm surprised it's as low as it is, that stat you just gave me. What do I attribute it to? I think it's a combination of things. I know I'm going to sound very traditional values, but you asked me, so I'm just going to say what I think. I think breakdown of family has affected some of this. I think what they call generations of harm. Generations of harm. I learned this term down in Milwaukee. And what that references is if you have if you have people who've had kids, those kids who have kids, or those kids who've had kids, who just aren't prepared to be responsible parents, or don't have the basics in order to do that, kids grow up in chaos. Kids that grow up in chaos, too often they get older, then they raise kids in more chaos. So now we've got 3, 4 into 5th generation of kids being raised in chaos. That's just going to have to show up in their mental health. It just is. So you take that, higher levels of domestic violence, you get higher levels of drug abuse, alcohol abuse, those kinds of things. So you have those kinds of things going on. And then if you add the mix of people being more transient, people not having neighbors that look out for each other, those kind of things. So you don't have the support system in place, then I think what you get is kids showing up at school who've come out of a lot of trauma, and they don't have decent coping skills. They don't know how to manage anger properly. They don't know how to express their emotions well. So you get that. You have the fear. They don't know if they're going home to what. They don't know. So they've seen things and heard things in their houses that are things kids shouldn't hear and see. So I think all those things, I think, add up to where kids have higher mental health issues. That's what I've seen, and that's what I'm running into here at the club, and what my colleagues in other clubs and in other community centers and other agencies tell me. That's what they're dealing with. That's what they're seeing. So the kinds of things that we train our staff on, what we trained them on 20 years ago was more recreational and educational. What we're training them on now, yes, we still do those things, but now we had to add how to watch for signs of domestic abuse, signs of kids being sexually abused, those kinds of things that I don't remember having to do that years ago, but now we have to do that. We have mental health counselors in the building now who we employ that are here to work with our staff and do one-on-one services for kids so that we can get that help that we need for kids. Used to not have that. Now we have that. We have more kids who they're so far behind in school, and I'm not blaming the school district. It's not that. I think they're trying, but they're showing up with so many issues and needs that it's so hard for a teacher to be able to teach that kid at what was the normal level because of all these other things that they're carrying, right? So that's what we're running into, and I'm seeing more and more of that, and I see it especially, but not necessarily, but I see it more so even in poverty. I see more of that. Now, are there kids that have mental health issues at other economic stratas in our country? Absolutely there are. But I think it gets magnified in poverty more because they don't have the resources to help deal with it. So that's what I'm running into.
And Oshkosh is 21.7%. That's also a 2016 stat. 21.7% poverty. Mm-hmm. Does that sound about right?
Well, that sounds right of the fact that where we are located here in this community, we have a higher concentration of families from lower income who live within like a 1 mile walking distance of the club. So I know that rate is higher right here. I'm not sure where that compares in the total population of Oshkosh, but certainly in this area, on the east side, and some surrounding pockets beyond us, it's. I think I would say that's probably true.
And the state as a whole, just to give you an idea, Wisconsin is 11.8%. So even at 21%, that's almost double the state average. And like you said, you're dealing with probably a higher percentage in this exact location. Mm-hmm. So with the mental health, that's super interesting. Sadly interesting that, over the last 10 years, you're, talking about educating your staff, basing it more around mental health and, watching out for those signs. how do we, just as a general public, it's easy to sit here and say, throw these stats out and say that's unfortunate. How can we improve the lives of young people every day?
Yeah. Well, if I could wave a magic wand,
Yeah.
I'd like to see more kids be able to be in situations that, frankly, are residential. You've seen some wonderful success in some cities where they've taken kids with their parents' permission and they've put them into residential settings where their experience is more controlled during the school week, especially. Think of boarding school kind of concept. I'm going to use that as the example. And if we could get kids more into those environments and we had more opportunities and facilities like that for kids where they could, during the week, be in a protected environment, focus on the academics, focus on the nutrition, focus on the after-school activities that are really healthy, focus on making sure kids get the right amount of sleep at night, and the mentors and the things around them, well, I think you could do wonders for a lot of kids, and I think a lot of those mental health issues would go away for those kids because you just hear stories about some of the places that have done that with a targeted group of kids, and they're coming out on the other side like almost close to 100% success rate. The numbers are stunning, and these are kids who came from really tough situations, but they've just closed an environment for those kids so that they can focus on doing well and preparing them, for success. And then I think those kids go home on the weekends and they're with their family, and I mean, but the families say yes, they want to do it too. So that would be, if I could wave the magic wand, that's what I'd want for a lot of kids. I can't wave that magic wand. So then what do we do? I think, if we're going to spend dollars in this country, I think we want to make sure we are putting in places like schools and places like Boys and Girls Clubs the kinds of money you need to provide the services you need to deal with these kinds of issues and things during a kid's daily life so that they're in a protected situation, they're not getting bullied, they feel safe, there's people there that can help them work on the education gap. A kid that can't read can't go forward. So it's silly that we're, moving that kid up to 3rd and 4th and 5th grade and they can't read. So how do we fix that earlier with things at school, places like the Boys and Girls Club to have tutors for kids after school, volunteer mentors, whatever. Those would be, a piece of the example. You got to get the academic side right, but then you also have to make sure they're eating well. Nutrition-wise, you want to make sure they're getting exercise. You want to make sure that they're around people who are watching so that they're making good choices during the day and afterward and keeping them clear of what I would call the evil of the world out there that puts kids making bad choices. So I think those are the kinds of things that we need to continue to focus on in this country if we're going to make headway with these situations with these kids. Hopefully along the way you get those experiences of those kids, they're going to grow up well, and we're going to grow up better. And then when it's their turn to grow up and them to have children, hopefully they'll make better choices and they'll have better resources to help the next generation. Those are my thoughts.
That's a very proactive approach, and I think that's something our society could look into. Especially the boarding school type scenario. That just seems like a very proactive, engaging way to get people, especially around youth. I'm sure. I mean, you know better than us, but the kids are going to be influenced heavily by the other kids they're around, their friends directly, and I think, man, that's just an extremely proactive approach to what would be beneficial, especially, unfortunately, we hear quite a bit, I'm sure you've heard this too, of, the older generation or whatever, our generation saying the next generation, and that's unfortunate because, they're learning from the people that came before them, correct? So,
Sure.
I think we can learn something from that as well as elders to the youth.
When I grew up in my neighborhood as a kid in Chicago, there were probably 60 kids on our block. I'm guessing something like that. I'm pretty sure we knew the name of every neighbor on our block. My parents knew them. They knew who they were. They knew their faces. And we had the run of the neighborhood as a kid, but I would say that my parents knew. If we were getting ourselves in trouble, my parents knew, because somebody was going to come down and tell them, or pick up the phone and call them, and vice versa. So I think we didn't have the boarding school concept, but we had a neighborhood that was looking all out after the kids. Most of the churches in the neighborhood, those pastors or priests, they knew most of the kids in that neighborhood. You had a local school that the kids walked to, and those people would, live in the neighborhood, and so you'd have those things, and so you had a community helping raise the kids. Yeah, that's lost in a lot of our communities now. I've had people tell me that they came and moved here to Oshkosh from parts of Milwaukee and parts of Chicago because they had to get out, because they didn't like the idea that every morning when they got up and walked their kid to school, they were worried about whether or not they might get shot. Well, who wants to live with that? Nobody wants to live with that. So that's not a neighborhood. That's not a community. That's not people looking out for you. So I think some of them escaped here for jobs and opportunity and better schools, safer. But I think hoping that they could embed themselves into a neighborhood so that their kids had a chance. And that's really what a lot of these parents are hoping for and striving for. I commend them for it.
I think that is extremely true, just the community in general around and the culture that you build. Especially, I mean, how do you continually influence someone if 20 other people are doing the wrong thing? I heard someone say that it takes 10 leaders to lead 100 people, because not all those 100 people are going to listen to one, and maybe those one leader influences 6 others and one leader only influences one person. So, I mean, on that topic, if we could kind of discuss a little bit how you and the Boys and Girls Club, especially Oshkosh here, has kind of created that culture and those principles at your board of directors. And there's 24 members on the board.
Yes, so we have 24 members on our board, and we have another 6 lifetime board members. In terms of creating the culture, I think it all points to, you have to have a guide, and the guide is our strategic plan and our mission and our vision, right? So in our mission, it says the Boys and Girls Club improves the lives of children and families. And then in our vision, we talk about the Boys and Girls Club being a generation-changing, enhancing youth development type of setting, where we lift up the values we do, the support that they need, and so we do all that to really try to help young people succeed. And so that's so once you set that mission and that vision, now you're going to have people who will sign on to your board that see that and that resonates with them. They have the same values. So they're going to come in and they're going to help support those values. And they're going to, when they talk with people out in the public about supporting the club, they're going to lift those kinds of things up. Not just our written values, but how it's played out in the buildings. So I think the board leads that. I think the board embraces it in the community, and I think the board attracts other community support from people that look at those things and hear those things and say, we want that. We want that for our community. The other thing that I notice with our board is that when there's decisions to be made about initiatives, directions we might go, the first place they go to when we have meetings about this is they go, well, does this fit within our mission? So I think they've learned to use the mission as their guide in decision-making in the future so that they don't stray too far off our mission. And I think that's one of the things that's helped keep our organization strong, is we know what we stand for, we know what we're trying to do, we bring partners in who believe in what we believe in and support that. The example is just having you guys here doing the Iron Alliance this summer, right? What you guys promote and what you believe in is pretty much in lockstep with what we're trying to do here. So whether it's you guys, whether it's the police department coming in and having them talking with kids about the neighborhood and about decisions and choices, whether it's volunteer mentors, whether it's I don't know, people from different walks of life that we ask to come down and spend time with them, or who we invite to be on our board. All those things are all goes back to tied to how do we live out the mission. And so a saying we have around here, and I'll tell this to staff and I'll tell it to board and other people, as I say, we've existed for 50 years. And I said we have one asset, and that asset is our good name. That's really our asset. Everything else you can replace, you can lose, but your asset, and I said it takes 50 years to build it up, and it takes about 15 seconds to tear it down. So we have to protect that one asset, protect our good name, because that's what people respond to, and that's what they buy into, and that's where we get our common values from. So that's what we try to protect and support. And so as a result with the board, they want the staff and they want volunteers in the community when they come in here. That's what they expect. They expect that we're lifting up those values, and that's what we're trying to teach our kids.
You guys are huge advocates of health and wellness. I mean, we know that just because of working with you guys, the health and wellness program here is unlike any other that we've worked with.
Thank you.
And ironically, today we actually did the health portion of our program with the kids, our Iron Alliance leadership group. Talk about, you have some very personal, really just a health story that you went through. Sure. I'd love to hear that story and just where health and wellness fits in your heart and why it's so important to you.
Sure. So health and wellness at the Boys and Girls Club, we'll talk about that and then talk about me. Boys and Girls Clubs of America lifts up 3 program priorities. There's academic success, there's good character leadership, and there's health and wellness. And everything fits into those 3 buckets. So if 1/3 of the buckets is health and wellness, then I think we, Boys and Girls Clubs and staff and our community, I think it's incumbent upon us to think through the choices and decisions we make on a daily basis at the club that's lifting up health and wellness. Especially, I can speak here in Wisconsin, we've got one serious obesity problem here. We've got it across the country. We've got it across parts of the world. But in Wisconsin, it's we rank there way down at the bottom. It's not a good ranking. It's our culture. It's the beer culture. It's the cheese culture. It's the processed food culture. Everything centers around food for celebrations. It's all those things. It goes on and on and on. And so I see that here, and I especially see it more so with kids with poverty, because we have a misconception from parents that we can't afford healthy food, or they don't know how to cook with healthy food, or it's a country that's so full of convenience stores and processed foods and everything that gets put on by so much of the food industry. So you have all those things working against families and kids. So at the club years ago, we made a commitment that we'd get out of things. And by the way, we're not perfect, and we certainly can improve every day. But we got out of things like we got rid of the pop machines. And the theory used to be, you have the pop machines. If the kids don't have pop at the club, they're going to go someplace else to get it. Or, no, we're going to use that money. They're going to raise money to go on a trip or something. And I looked at it, and I looked at all of our kids who are, grossly obese, or parents, and I'm sitting there seeing them come in and put money in a pop machine and having that for breakfast. And then I'm going, what are we teaching here? This is not right. And then we'd have people want to give us candy all the time, right? All the stores that finish, Christmas and Easter, and they'd send over cases and cases of candy, and then staff would take that. Now we're giving it out to kids for awards and rewards and giving it out as part of their daily meal. And I'm looking at that again and going, this is crazy. If we're doing this, and then these kids are already obese, and how can we help these kids at all possibly make a change if we're doing exactly the opposite of what we should do? And so I think there was a culture change that we had to make at the club. We had to think about spending more money for fruits and vegetables as part of our daily offerings. We had to think about how much of that processed foods we were offering, where we were going to spend our money. So we had to change some of that. Again, perfect we are not. I can tell you, I'd like us to do better with our menu offerings than we do. We do okay, but I think we could do better. It was a culture change with our staff, getting them to sign on and commit to trying to model health and wellness for kids. I asked staff to, not bring in, at lunchtime, don't bring McDonald's in here, and don't bring, don't have bags of candy in your desk, and let's not give kids that for awards. And it was hard at first. People didn't, they struggled with it. They didn't want to do that. And that was over time, but it got better and it got better. And then eventually we got into, doing a health and wellness program for our staff. And we do this every quarter. We do a challenge. Right now we're walking across America. That's what we're doing right now. And we have staff divided on teams, and they get points for all the various physical activities they do, and they turn those into their team captains, and then it gets on this map, and we do some incentives and some thank yous and that kind of thing. So we have a staff member that's part of their job is dedicated to that. So we spend those dollars, and we have donors that give us money for that. And then hopefully that in turn lifts that up to kids, and they see that and they hear about it, and so a combination of all those things. Some of our field trips are more active daily with kids. You go in the gym and they're just moving those kids, moving. We want them moving. So I think those are some of the things that we've done. There are other things, but those are some of the things we've done. As far as me personally, I grew up in a family that struggled with obesity. My dad was obese. My mom was obese. My dad was in the Army, and I bet, after he got out of the Army, that was probably the last time he did any real serious physical exercise. He was a music professor, and so he had an office job, and he smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and he ate the kind of the French diet of heavy meals each day and desserts and lots of dairy and whatever else they were doing, and so most of my family members were heavy as a kid, as a growing up, and I didn't have that as a kid. I was fortunate I got into sports, and I didn't struggle with it like some of my siblings did, but God, I lost my dad at 68 to a massive heart attack, and probably from smoking and obesity. I watched my mom die of colon cancer, which is definitely has links to obesity. I lost a brother to a massive heart attack at 52. Who was probably, when he died, he was probably 150, 200 pounds overweight. I watched him gain and lose that weight a couple times in his life and battle with it. I got a sister with breast cancer. I got another sister with issues with knees and whatever else, but it's all weight related. It just is. So it's preventable. It's preventable, right? And so for me, I always try to, be active, basketball, other sports, other things like that. But, I got into my later 50s, and pretty soon, I won't do this and I won't do that. Stop doing this, stop doing that. You eat things you shouldn't. And one day I woke up and I had pain in my back. My arm was numb. I had pain running down my arm. And I had thought about the fact that I had let myself gain weight from how I used to keep myself. I thought I was having a heart attack. And I went to the ER, and they said, no, you're not having a heart attack, but you got something's going on in there. And so at the end of the story, I found out from a guy that was a neurologist that I had pinched nerves getting pinched in my back from a discs pinching it, and they wanted to do surgery. And then more I explored it, I found out, that nerve damage was going up and down my arm, and I went back and talked with my doctor about it. I said, you know what, let me just look at the facts. The facts are that right now, today, I'm 50 pounds heavier than I was at my college weight, right, 50 pounds heavier. And you put that on over some time. And so I made a commitment to myself that day that I was going to make a change. And so I did. I did all the healthy things, went on, eat healthy, daily exercise, let go of a lot of the carbs and the fats and the sugars and those kinds of things. And over a period of, actually it was about 3 months, I lost 50 pounds. I mean, I really worked at it. Since then, probably, that was about 1.5 years ago, or maybe not quite. I think it was 2 years ago right now that this actually started. It has happened. I probably put back about 5 or 7 pounds of that because I probably maybe did a little too much. But the point of it is that I didn't have to have surgery. All that numbness went away. My every part of my life that I needed to have came back. I feel great. My energy level came back. All those kind of things went up. And the more I thought about it, the more I was doing it as, I wanted to role model that for my family, for people here at the club, people at church, whatever, that, you can do this. You can take control, and you can change that. So that's, I think, part of my personal story. And now going forward, it's just, when people want to talk about it, I'll talk with them about it and say, here was my journey. Here's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's not just for me, but from the family I came from, and realizing it's so preventable. But then here for the club, my staff and my club kids here, and then board members and anybody else that struggles with it, I want to show them that anybody can do it. You can do it. But you have to have resolve for it, and you have to, I guess, be motivated. I was, my motivation at the time was surgery. I didn't want to have surgery. And I also wanted to have a better life for myself and go back to the life that I used to enjoy. And now, the other day, I with a friend, we went on a 66-mile bike ride, and it was a blast, right? It was fun. And this weekend, I rode around Green Lake twice, and that's 26 miles, and 6 a.m. bike ride, and I swim again, and I do the things I want to do. So I feel good personally, and I feel hopefully good that it's a better role model for others because of what we're trying to lift up here at the Boys and Girls Club. So there you go. Perfect, I'm not. Do I still eat some things that shouldn't sometimes? Yep. But I hopefully have given myself a better future, and role model that hopefully for others.
What's great about all that is not one time was there blame put on anything besides your choices that you made. And too often we hear, my knees hurt because of this.
Yes.
And my back hurts because of that. And I had to take this pill for this and blame this person. And it's refreshing just to hear and see, like, that is truly what, as a leader, you've developed yourself of, you wanted to do it for the club, not just for the kids, but also the staff, to show them, hey, this is what we're about. I'm going to do it myself. I'm not going to tell you to dress nice and show up in jeans. It's great. And, Zach, you spoke on that a little bit too, going back to your football career, of the times when you had, they weren't career-ending injuries, but you were just kind of not real conscious of nutrition. You're just more like calories in to get your, what you needed for your workouts and things. And then you realized at one point, hey, this stuff's not working for me. I'm getting some, pain here, pain there, soreness more. Like, I'm not as effective in my workouts. It's directly correlated with your nutrition and your activity as a human being daily. It's you in professional sports can your word goes pretty far there as far as that goes. Am I correct?
Yeah. I had back issues my sophomore year. I was eating like a slob. I had eaten taco dip every night at midnight at college lifestyle, all you can eat buffet, whatever they had out. I was mowing it down. I put on 30 pounds, and it was all because of the discipline I didn't have in my diet. So change that, lose 15 pounds, and just like that, my back's feeling better. It's really simple. Like you said, it's just being disciplined. And how did you start? So you're taking 66-mile bike rides now.
Yes.
Did you jump in and go gung ho? And were you taking those long bike rides? Were you disciplined 7 days out of the week, or was it just baby steps?
Well, prior, when I had been biking for a while, over some time, so I had been doing some biking earlier, some years back. So I knew what that was like, and I'd built some of that up over time, and then I'd let it go. So when it was time to do it again, and when I decided I was going to take this challenge on for myself, I think it's a discipline. I committed myself, at least 5 to 7 days a week, but usually 5 days a week, that I was either going to be in the YMCA, on the treadmill or something, plus, working on the weights, or I was going to be finding time to be on that bike and getting out there and doing that, that cardio, right? So you have to make time for that. And that, what you talked earlier about people's excuses, and that's one of the big ones. People say, I don't have any time for that. And I don't believe that anymore. I think you do make time for that. Either get up earlier, stay up later, or say no to other things that you just, it's easy. I suppose some people could argue that and say, yeah, easy for you, not so easy for me. I don't know. Your choices, either you make the changes and you find the time, or, you better, be coffin shopping, because, it'll catch up with you. So I think so that was a commitment to myself that I knew that that had to be part of the routine. I had to do that. So you do that instead of lunch. You do that over time, where you get up earlier and you work out earlier, and so what? So you don't and then so if I did that earlier and then at the end of the day, man, I'm tired. Great, don't watch TV. Go to bed. It's okay. And so you just you're making a shift on some of those things. You mentioned earlier buffets, right? And this is Wisconsin, the home of the all you can eater, right? And which is itself is crazy. How much can you really eat, right? But they promote that crap, You stay away from stuff like that. You just stay out of that stuff. And so I think you do those things. So for me, I did that. I remember, in fact, I still have it there. I put up a thermometer, not a real thermometer, but a paper thermometer on my wall, and I could fill it in as the pounds came off. The thermometer read was getting higher, and I had a goal in my mind. And so I think for me, that was another incentive, was looking at that thermometer going, feeling the pants starting to feel better, in terms of how they fit, and then there were some fun things, like the fact that I got to a point where I could get rid of all those pants and get pants that were the next size down, and that was a joy, personal joy. So I think it was a combination of the discipline, the joy of it, noticing I was feeling better, and then I remember the day I had to go in and get my physical, and they looked at everything, the blood, the heart rate and the pulse and the this and the blood pressure and all that, and the nurse looked at me, and she looked back at my chart and she said, "This is amazing. Like, you are exactly perfectly where you need to be on every one of those categories." Well, that was a joy, and that was a motivator to go, you know what, now it's not because of family hereditary things, because people would tell me that, oh, it's the family you come from. It's not. I just don't think that's necessarily true. Are there hereditary things? Yes. But so much of this is lifestyle choice for all of us in our country. We just have been fed a whole nother theory and philosophy that says fix it with a shot, fix it with a pill, give up, don't worry about it. You know what? Have another pizza. You had a bad day, here, eat. And that's just not true. None of that's true. You shouldn't do that stuff. So that's kind of where I went with it. Yeah.
One of the key things that I took from that was that time management aspect of things. I hear myself saying it too. I don't have time. But then it's the thing is not really making the excuse or anything, but just being conscious of what you're doing and what you're deciding to do with your time. I think that's where it starts. Mm-hmm. And if you realize that every decision you make, you've made the conscious decision to have that be the most important thing in your life at that time. So if you decide making lunch, if you decide to do that, that's the most important thing in your day right now. Yes. If you're scrolling Facebook for 2 hours when you get home from work, you've consciously decided scrolling Facebook for 2 hours is the most important thing in your life. Yeah. And one thing my dad said is, if your day is getting so filled up that you can't do the things you need to do, like exercise, your schedule is off. There's something wrong with your time management that you can't get in one of the most important things, that exercise or the cooking, the healthy options, or just even researching some healthy options. But just being conscious of if you are not doing what needs to get done during the day, you need to look at your schedule, what you're doing, either wasted time or productive time, whatever it may be. So
we just spoke with the kids about how if you don't have health, you don't have hope. That's really what it comes down to. You as a leader, you can be the best leader in the world, but if your disc would have herniated and you would have been out of office for 3 months, you're useless as the CEO if you don't have that health. So the most important thing, it comes down to, you got to be healthy before you can do anything.
Yeah, you do. I go to national conferences for Boys and Girls Clubs. I see people that come in and they're 200 pounds overweight and 250 pounds overweight, and they're the nicest people in the world. And I love them to death for what they do, for caring about the mission. But my heart goes out for them because I'm thinking, you're going to be sick anyway, or you're not going to be able to. You're probably not going to be able to lead. You shorten your life, or you can't do the things that you'd like to do. You're just limited. You just are. You're more limited with that. It's not a judgment thing. I'm not judging them. I'm sad for them, and so you're right about that. We just lost a wonderful staff member here, 29 years, and made quite an impact in the club in so many ways. But she struggled with her health over the years, and choices and those kinds of things, and in the end, she had a disease that took her life, and I know that wasn't the way she wanted to go, and we'll miss her dearly. But my hope is that we can, again, think through that going forward for other staff, that we can do anything we can do to help them to live the healthiest lives they can, so they can do what they really want to do, which is work with these kiddos and be part of their lives. So we'll continue the fight.
So in your experience, Mark, what is the best way to approach that conversation? Because like you mentioned before, by no means are we perfect. The bad things often too, but we all know people that can make some tweaks to their nutrition and to their weight issues and exercise habits. How have you approached that conversation, or is there a good way to go about that?
I don't have an exact magic formula, and I've certainly made some mistakes in some of my approaches before. Because it's one of those things in the end that it's a personal choice somebody makes for themselves. They're going to make a change. So, and some people don't like to talk about it. They feel embarrassed. They feel like you're harassing them. They think you're judging them. And so I have to think about those things, along the way. So I think the best thing we can do is some of what we're doing right now. We have a health and education a person here who is a health and wellness coordinator. That's their title. And so staff know that they can go to that person. They can talk to them about some of the, the challenges they have, or get information from them, or they'll help them get information. So that's one thing we offer. And then we offer the things like the Health and Wellness Challenge, because some people enjoy doing things as a group, or they want the group motivation, or they want to feel like the challenges we offer, anybody can do them. So you can start wherever you are, you can make a start. So I think if you do that, people are a little more likely to say, okay, I'll try it. Okay, I've struggled with this before, but I want to try it. So I think you lift that up, you encourage, you encourage positive behavior. So we give out little incentive awards for people for participating in the health and wellness program. That's a positive. So you try to go, I think, on the positive. You encourage things like, get out on the weekend and get active and do those things. We try to, serve healthy things here at the club. So when the staff are eating the meals, they're getting a healthy meal as well. Like I said, perfectly or not, I wince the day we're serving corn dogs, and so we try not to do so much of that kind of stuff, and I celebrate the days when I see fresh vegetables and fruit and some of those things that we're doing. There's other things I've done over the years with staff. I've had certain staff, and I've, offered to help them, take care of the cost of, joining a YMCA, because we have one right down the block, a wonderful one. So we do that. We open up our health and fitness room. We tell staff, you want to come in early and use it on your own earlier, do it. Stay afterwards. It's free. Use it. So we do those kind of things. And then when we have some of our staff trainings during the year, some of the trainings focus on this area, some education for people to help them understand that. And so we do those. Those are some of the things we try to do to lift that up for staff. You can't force people to do it. At least in our world, you can't. You can't make them feel like you're harassing them, or that you're doing something in a way that feels that that they've been discriminated against. And you have to try to watch for that as well. In the end, I'm gonna fight for this for people, because it's such an issue, and I feel so strongly about it that we'll probably err on the side of lifting it up maybe more than other places do, because I'm tired of seeing people's lives limited by this and being unhealthy and having some of the awful diseases and awful things that come from this that just, are preventable. So I'm going to lift it up. As long as they let me do it, I'm going to do it.
Mark, we appreciate your vision for the Boys and Girls Club, everything that you've done over the last 35 years. We've heard a few stories. I'm sure we could talk for hours on the stories. Also appreciate your health and wellness vision for your club, for the community of Oshkosh, the United States as a whole. You have a deep care for people and their health because you know how important it is. So just appreciate your vision for that.
Thank you. Well, I love our country. I personally am, feel honored and grateful that I live here in the USA. I respect for our military. I respect for what we're trying to do, anything good we do in this country to try to make good citizens, to try to help people be healthy, to help people, learn to give back. We're not a perfect country, as you guys know, and we have plenty of things we do wrong, both in the country and us as individuals. I've certainly made my share of mistakes in my life. We all have, but you just got to keep going forward. That's just the deal. You just do. So
we just want you to know, and I'm sure after listening to this, the listeners will appreciate you. I mean, just how you lead and impact the community. You mentioned a story before where you went out of your way, to go speak to a family of a young kid that you knew was doing great things and wasn't even a club member, and just wanted to go out and reach out and have them be an influence in your club, just to the staff and the kids around them. And it's just amazing to see people actually just moving, taking action, and being more of an influence, and instead of kind of just waiting for that door to open for them. So it's really great. And there was a quote that you were passionate about that says, life's 10% of what you do and 90% of how you react to it. Yes. And that's pretty powerful, hearing that and understanding that the person that can control their emotions can control the situation that they're in and dictate where they're going to be going. So
it's true. Well, I enjoyed talking with you guys today, and I appreciate what you guys are trying to do with the Iron Alliance, and what your mission is. And I think we're on a lot of the same pages. So thanks for what you guys are doing as well.
Hopefully I know you guys found a lot of value in this show. Take some action. As Mark mentioned, you can donate to the Boys and Girls Club, but at a minimum, you can make an impact right now in your community. We're around kids. You see a kid in the park, just strike up a conversation. I know I need to do more of it. We are molding this future generation. So go take action on improving our youth. Leave us a 5-star review if you enjoyed this podcast. Share it. You can find it on the podcast app or our website, teamironalliance.com, and we'll see you next week.